The collapse of
Mga
the Russian
kaibigan,
army,
tuloy-tuloy po.
Ukrainian forces began to advance towards the Crimea. Authorities say attacks on Crimea will begin shortly. Statements were made about the operations that would change the course of the war in Crimea. Tensions had never been higher since the beginning of the war. The leaders of many countries began
Kanagdas manino,
negotiations.
nagpapada pa kikiramay para sa video na bagiteng.
Due to the war
Sige
between
mga
Ukraine and
kapalarig.
Russia, the surrounding countries are at war. There have been very important developments between countries. The first news in the morning came from Kharkiv. Ukrainian army destroyed Russian ammunition depot in the Kharkiv region. The ammunition depot in the region is of key importance for Russia because the Russian troops were making shipments to the ammunition depot in the Kharkiv region in order to be able to defend on the Kharkiv border. In this way, Russian soldiers could send ammunition and weapons to the positions on the Kharkiv border. In addition, there were many Russian armored vehicles and tanks around the destroyed ammunition depot. As a result of the attacks, the ammunition depot exploded. All armored vehicles around the warehouse became unusable. The destruction of this ammunition depot could result in the withdrawal of Russia. Russia will no longer be able to meet with Ukrainian troops outside of Luhansk, because the Ukrainian forces are more advantageous than Russian army in terms of military equipment and experienced soldiers. The destruction of the warehouse in the area will allow the Ukrainian army to advance rapidly to a certain point in Luhansk. In addition, this advance of Ukrainian army will make Belgorod region of Russia vulnerable to attacks. Russia's consecutive losses caused the reactions to Putin to increase considerably. Putin's mentor turned his back on Putin. The city in southern Ukraine was the only regional capital Russia could control. When Ukrainians counterattacked at the end of August, everyone thought Kherson would be the first target, but there was a big surprise. The experienced advance of Ukrainian army and the systems sent by the Western countries completely changed the course of the war. Ukrainian soldiers cleared Kharkiv and its surroundings, the country's second largest city on Russian border, from Russians in a few days with a lightning attack. Ukrainians began preparations for operations in the Donetsk and Luhansk regions. In the process, an attack on Kherson was launched at the beginning of October. After Putin's fake referendums, Ukrainian army began victory operations and took action to clear Kherson. With the start of the operation, General Sergei Surovikin, the commander of Russian forces on the southern front, made sentences accepting that he was cornered in Kherson. Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu officially ordered the troops to withdraw. Having suffered its third embarrassing defeat after Kiev and Kharkiv, Russian army was forced to retreat to the eastern bank of Dnieper River. Ukrainians announced this morning that train services from Kherson to other cities in the country will start soon. The destruction of parts of Novokakov Dam on Dnieper River, which supplies Kherson with water, was viewed from the satellite. Ukrainian engineers took action to repair the dam. In a short time, life will return to normal again. However, this situation created an earthquake effect in Moscow. Strong criticism of Putin continues to come. The Institute for War Studies, which closely monitors the Russian war, states that Vladimir Putin, who left Kherson to the Ukrainians, is increasingly criticized in Russia. Describing the resulting picture as a wave of criticism, the Institute announced that ideological war had begun between the hawks in Moscow and Putin. Recalling the anger of Alexander Dugin, the ideologue of the Russian world, the Institute said the retreat has shaken nationalist confidence that Putin will fulfill his promises and commitments. Dugin, who sided directly with Putin, is considered the mastermind of the Russian leader. As Russia's dreams of total control of Ukraine were blown up, it became clear that the Russian leader would have major problems with his nationalist Russian supporters. Another media figure, propagandist presenter Vladimir Solovyov, also says there is a full-blown war against Ukraine. Solovyov demands the dismissal of everyone involved in Kherson's disappearance. Pro-Kremlin Russian news agencies said Putin sold Kherson. Russia took a very tough front against Putin. Internal problems erupted both in the Russian army and in the Kremlin. The rapid progress of Ukrainian army in this process will cause Russia to enter a period of great collapse. Putin did not get what he wanted from this war and lost everything he had. Tensions in Russia are higher than ever before. On the other hand, the motivation of Ukrainian army is quite high. The capture of Kherson by Ukrainian troops greatly increased the motivation of Ukrainian soldiers, and Ukrainian soldiers who entered Kherson were greeted with flowers by the Ukrainians in the region.
Magpaabot po
After
po pagkikaramay
short
para sa biktima ng Bagyo-Beng sa
President
Caritas,
Ukraine
Manila.
Zelensky announced the new front of the war. Ukrainian leader Vladimir Zelensky stated that more than 60 settlements in the Kherson region are currently under Ukrainian control. Recalling the enthusiastic video footage of the Khersonites meeting with Ukrainian soldiers, Zelensky said, "We will see similar talks in other provinces and villages that are still under attack. We have not forgotten anyone. We will not leave anyone behind. Zelensky, we will also come to all our cities and villages in Donbass. We will definitely see how hundreds of people who took to the streets with flags in their hands greeted Ukrainian soldiers in Crimea. Ukrainian forces want to completely liberate Ukrainian lands before winter comes, because next winter will slow down operations on both sides. Ukrainian army wants to enter the winter months with a great victory. In this process, it will be very difficult for Russian army to send military equipment and armored vehicles to the front." He said that aid to Ukrainian forces will continue, but after a heavy defeat, Moscow's economy
Tulungan natin ang Caritas, Manila para sa biktima ng Bagyong Paeng sa si Rosal.
sanctions on Russia. The Russian economy has to deliver more to the front line during the winter months. But as I mentioned,
Magbabalikan ka ni Zhao
Moscow's
sa
economy
Veritas.
cannot sustain a war that goes on during the winter months. The winter season can last up to 6 months. Rain and soft ground at the end of November will slow the movement of both armies. Hard weather conditions in Ukraine are slowing down the armies a little bit. The roads are getting muddy and making it difficult to launch large-scale attacks, said Colin Kahl, Undersecretary of Defense of the United States Department of Defense. Military analysts say the war will enter a new phase in February and soldiers on both sides will be in the midst of the impending pause. Sending new rockets and missile systems to Ukrainian military will enable Ukraine to launch rocket attacks in the winter, because ground operations will slow down significantly due to weather conditions. After this process, armies will start attacks with missiles, rockets, and long-range artillery systems. The decrease in the number of rockets in the military inventory of Russian army shows that Russian army may face big problems. The tension is increasing day by day. We have come to the end of another video. We will continue to convey the events that took place in the coming hours to you quickly and accurately. We continue to report the events impartially to you. You can like the videos to support us. You can also subscribe to the channel to make it easier to follow new videos. I wish you all happy days. See you.
See you, Arthur. See you there, mga aso, mga...
Segundong puno na siguro. Siguro, pwede na mag-face-to-face catch up. Dito, sigurado. Green Cross.
See you there, mga aso. See you there, mga pusa.
Sa nagbabagong mundo, ano man ang harapin ko, gamit lang sigurado. Green Cross.
Hi, Arthur. Si ano mismo, si Arthur, oh. May sa basement.
Welcome to the Bear in Global channel. Armed forces of Ukraine calls on the Belarusian and Russian soldiers to surrender. Tension rose in the north and east. It was stated that after the southern front was taken under control by Ukrainian army, hot clashes started on eastern and northern fronts. Coordination of Russian army was completely broken. Russian soldiers fleeing to Belarusian side want to get help from the Belarusian army. Ukrainian army has deployed part of its troops on the northern front. A war could break out at